My name is Stephen.
Stephen.
And we want to thank you for coming to Central Ohio.
Oh, sure.
You've had a great impact on this area. And I've read your books. Great work.
Oh, thanks.
2 of them, and even the children's one.
Oh, cool.
But, I have a fun question and
Okay.
a mystery.
Okay.
God values our faith. And we live a life of faith. We don't see God. And we exercise. And he gives us situations, to become stronger and stronger. And that's a mystery to me. And I'm eagerly awaiting, the ray of eternity. What is that? I think that faith will be carried over into the next life. And have you thought about that? And what is that going to look like? It seems like faith is like, God, trusting God, but yet independent and creativity. And he desires for us to move on our own in many, many ways, but have a faith base.
Okay, I'm going to answer that. Let me ask you, I'll answer any follow-up in a second, so let me get the guy behind you also get a chance real quick. I'll answer that question for you for sure, Stephen, okay?
Okay, thank you.
So I need to define what I talk about when I talk about faith, first of all, because you raised a good question about faith. Will there be faith in eternity? So I always look at it this way. Beliefs, I think, are categorized in 3 categories. One, you can have some beliefs that are unreasonable. If you think you get warts from frogs, we have science now that tells you how you get warts. You don't get warts from frogs. If you believe you get warts from frogs, you hold an unreasonable belief because it's actually a belief in something in spite of evidence to the contrary. If you hold a belief that's blind, you just don't know if it's true or not, you just always accepted it as true, well, then you hold a blind belief because you hold a belief even though you have no evidence for or against this thing. Or you can have what I call a forensic belief, which is a belief that is what you believe to be true in light of the evidence you have, even though you can't answer every question. Faith is the same way. You can have an unreasonable faith, a blind faith, or a forensic faith. What I mean by that is that in every trial I've ever worked, I have not been able to answer the questions that the jury wants me to answer. I've had cases where the guy killed his wife, he got rid of the body, and then he claimed that she ran off. And I couldn't tell the jury how he killed her, when he killed her, where he killed her, how he got rid of the body, how he even moved her car. I couldn't answer any of those important questions. They still found him guilty, even though they had unanswered questions. So in other words, they took a step of trust based on the evidence we did have, even though they had open questions. That is the kind of faith that I think we have as Christians. Now, I don't think we'll have that after we're on that dot that leads us into eternity, because the question will be resolved. I won't have to make an inference from evidence. And by the way, this is exactly what Jesus of Nazareth asked for his hearers. He said, if you don't believe what I'm saying to you, at least believe on the evidence of these miracles. Really? You don't want us to believe this blindly? No. I'm going to do some stuff in front of you first, then that should demonstrate it. And when John the Baptist had problems in his own faith and sent his disciples, because John was in custody, and his disciples went to John and said, hey, Jesus, and said, Jesus, John just sent us. He wants to know, are you the one? Think of what Jesus could have said to John. He could have said, hey, are you kidding me? John's asking this question. John, my cousin, who leapt in the womb when our mothers met, John who baptized me, that John, who's all his disciples are now my disciples, that's the John who now is wondering if I'm, really? You tell him to go have some more faith. You tell him to go pray about this. You tell him to suck it up. He could have said a number of things. Instead, he said, no problem, hang on. He worked 3 miracles in front of John's disciples. He said, go back and tell John what you just saw. That's a very evidential approach to asking us to believe something even though you have open questions. I've never asked a jury to render a verdict in which I knew they didn't have huge open questions that they were never going to get answered. I couldn't even answer them afterwards when we would meet after the trial. I don't know the answer to those questions. But they still render verdicts. They take a step of trust in light of the evidence. That's the kind of step I think we're asked to take as believers. Look, there is more than enough evidence to reasonably infer that God exists, but there's also more than enough wiggle room for you to deny he exists. There just is. That's the way every case is. That's why jury selection is the most important thing we do. Because if you don't want it to be true, you'll find a way to wiggle around. It's fine. I think that God leaves it that way so that your decision is not compelled. He's a gentleman that way. He's not going to force you in, give you more than enough evidence, but there'll be some open questions you have, and you have to make a decision if you can traverse the open questions given the evidence. Thanks so much for watching our video. If it was helpful and useful to you, I'd really appreciate it if you would follow us, subscribe to our channel at the bottom link here in the video, and tell your friends. And please follow us on social media.